Good thing I'm bringing Evo to P-Town.
Nathaniel's meeting me for lunch when I'm in P-Town.
Yeah, and I couldn't find a dog sitter for Evo.
I'm glad, Nathaniel, you said you're meeting Galen in P-Town, because I was going to say this is not going to help the questions listeners send in.
I know. At this point, we just lean into it.
If you can't beat them, join them. Hello and welcome to the GD Politics Podcast. I'm Galen. Well, it looks like President Trump is finally facing the scandal that will do him in. Quote, Trump fumes that Epstein mess as polls reveal big GOP revolt, reads The New Republic. Donald Trump suffers major polling blow over Jeffrey Epstein files, reads Newsweek. At the very least, the story has had some staying power, and Trump's approval rating has been sliding. But is it good data, bad data, or not data to draw a connection between the two? In other words, yes, we will be talking about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal conspiracy drama today against the wishes of one or maybe even both of our panelists. We're also going to take a closer look at how Americans are thinking about the economy. It's a tricky moment. Inflation is up, but modestly. It still looks like more tariffs are likely on their way, which is one of the reasons the Fed says it isn't lowering interest rates. Trump is also threatening the independence of the Fed, and more economists are talking about the national debt. But do voters care? Can they make fetch happen? And we've also got a redistricting update. Republicans in Texas are suggesting they'll try to redraw their congressional maps to their benefit before the midterms. And Gavin Newsom says he'll fight gerrymandering with gerrymandering and try to do the same in California if they follow through. Here with me to discuss it all are two dear friends of the pod. Mary Radcliffe, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Galen, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's a Monday. I'm trying to, caffeinate myself back to life. Also here with us is Nathaniel Rakich. Welcome to the podcast, Nathaniel.
Hey, Galen, how are you?
I'm doing well. Guys, it's been a minute. How are both of you?
Doing well.
Great.
Excited to talk about the this Jeffrey Epstein scandal?
God, no. 2 of the 3 podcast topics this week are not my favorites. So
you hate the economy.
I guess.
You hate the economy. You hate Jeffrey
Epstein. I love
Epstein.
redistricting so much that it's worth it.
Well, then let's get it out of the way. So a lot of
redistricting? Get redistricting out of the way?
No,
how dare you?
Jeffrey Epstein.
Thank God. Okay.
So a lot of news coverage has drawn a connection between the Jeffrey Epstein files drama and Trump's slide in the polls. And to be clear, Trump's overall approval rating is around net -9, net -10, and that's ticked down from where it was a couple weeks ago at, say, -6, -7. At the same time, if we look at some of the recent polling on this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, I'll use Quinnipiac as an example, their latest poll reads, a week after the Justice Department and the FBI effectively closed the investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein by releasing no new files and concluding that he died by suicide in his jail cell, 17% of voters say they approve of the way the Trump administration is handling the Jeffrey Epstein files, while 63% of voters disapprove. Now, to be clear, that is a plurality of Republicans disapproving and a majority of independents and Democrats disapproving. Just to give you some of those numbers overall, it's 40% of Republicans say they approve, 2% of Democrats say they approve, and 11% of independents say they approve. So, Mary, let's start with you. Is drawing the connection between Americans' disapproval of the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files to overall Trump's decline in the polls good data, bad data, or not data? GD, BD, or needy?
I think it's not data, right? Like we cannot know what specific events are impacting the overall approval rating. Like, it's not possible to know, really. I mean, asked directly if they approved of Trump's handling of the issue in Reuters Ipsos, I think he was underwater 17-54 in their poll last week on this issue specifically. So, it's true that people don't like how Trump is handling the Epstein issue. But there was this really interesting poll that came out yesterday from YouGov and CBS News. They asked about a bunch of different issues. They focused on 4 topics, which were inflation, immigration, the one big beautiful bill, and the Epstein case. Those are their 4. And in each topic area, the last question they asked was, how much does this issue matter to how you evaluate Donald Trump's presidency? Which I thought was really fascinating because we don't see that question in that form very often. So here's what the numbers are. For inflation, 56% of people said it mattered a lot. For immigration and deportation, 61% said it mattered a lot. For the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, 56% said it mattered a lot. So majorities on all three of those. For Epstein case and files, 36% said it mattered a lot. So this is like clearly less important to voters than the other issues that are driving the news of the day. And if you want to think like, okay, this has made MAGA mad, because this is what I think a lot of the news coverage has been like. It's made MAGA mad and they're disapproving of him even more because of it. Only 11% of Republicans said the Epstein case mattered a lot. 54% of Republicans said it did not matter at all. Everyone else said it mattered a little, right? So like, I don't think it makes sense to say that the Epstein case in particular is driving the drop in Donald Trump's approval recently. I think it's probably more related to economic issues and immigration.
It's a little bit like, have y'all been around for the past decade? It is a little surprising to me, maybe the way that this issue is being handled, not only because I think people already knew that they had a relationship,
Yeah.
but also because this is exactly the kind of scandal that doesn't seem to have affected Trump negatively in the past. But you are seeing a lot of coverage that's like MAGA is turning on Trump. And I think it also maybe misunderstands what MAGA is. Are there people, loud people online who are upset about this or have conspiracies about this that have now like an itch they need to scratch? Yes. Is that MAGA? No. MAGA is people who like Trump and like sort of his core proposals on things like immigration, and the rest of the world is taking advantage of the United States, and it's make America great again, not clearly make America wholesome again. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been a little confused by how this has blown up in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you think about the ethos of Trump, especially from 2016 when he first came on the scene, I mean, the ethos of Trump has always been like anti-elite in a way, right? And so I think like the reason that this has made waves is that this is seen as like the quintessential elite people getting better treatment than non-elites, and so it feels sort of contrary to Trump's like fundamental nature.
Okay.
That is speculation. I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
seen
yeah.
polls that ask about that, but for me, I
All
think
right.
that's why it's been so big.
Nathaniel, can you make the case that this is good data?
No, I can't. I agree that it is not data. The main thing to me is that, right, this is a good case of like Twitter and cable news is not real life, because it is not clear to me looking at the approval rating averages that Trump has actually gotten less popular, right? Like if you look at the New York Times average, he's been basically steady at 44% approval for the past month. His disapproval has ticked up from 52 to 54%, but like that's the kind of thing I really don't think that we should be reading into, because when you kind of take a bigger step back and like in a year, when you're looking at this period in time, and like, sure, if it continues to go up from 54 to 57, then that's a spike that you'll notice, but it could very easily just go back to 52% this week, and then nobody will notice because there's always a little bit of kind of like twitches in the line at some point, right? Basically, I think the main trend that we have seen with Donald Trump is the same trend that we have seen with basically every president, which is that he started off popular to some degree. Obviously, other presidents have had bigger honeymoon periods in the past than he has. And then there was an inflection point at some point, a few months into his term, where he flipped and became unpopular. And he's basically been at the level of unpopularity that we have come to expect from Donald Trump from his first term since that time, which is about that 44% approval. I guess during his first term, he tended to hover more around like 42%. But again, these are small differences. And again, that disapproval number being just a little bit north of 50%. And so I just don't see the evidence for this mattering among the broader electorate for, I think, a lot of the reasons that Mary mentioned. Salience is so important. It isn't because of, you can't just be like, oh, this number, 70% of Americans disapprove of his handling, and therefore this is his worst issue and this is what's driving it. Salience is really key. I'm also curious, Mary, because to the point about kind of the Republicans, like, yeah, I think Democrats are obviously not going to approve of basically anything that Donald Trump does. So the fact that only 2% of them approve of his handling of the Epstein files is basically irrelevant. The independence number isn't great for him. It's quite bad. But again, I think independents care more about the economy and immigration. You could maybe at the start of all this, if you could tell me like this is an issue that like Republicans are going to be upset with Trump about, and that is a group among which he does have room to drop, I could be like, Okay, sure, that's plausible. But Mary, I wonder if you have any stats on Donald Trump's approval rating, average approval rating among Republicans specifically over, say, the past month, and if there's been any movement, because I'm betting there hasn't been.
I actually do, and this is going to be surprising, I think. So
Hmm.
I have a sense of what's about to happen.
Okay.
Is it that his approval rating went up amongst Republicans?
yes, Galen. So
Not data.
the YouGov
This is
Economist,
data, to be clear.
the YouGov Economist published on Friday an analysis over the entirety of Trump's term, his approval rating among not 3 groups, but 4 groups. So Democrats, independents, Republicans that identify as MAGA, and Republicans that do not identify as MAGA. And over the last month or so, what you see is his approval rating declining among independents and basically staying the same among Democrats and MAGA Republicans and going up among non-MAGA Republicans. And I suspect that increase among non-MAGA Republicans has more to do with the economic package that was just passed that includes things that non-MAGA Republicans might really like tax cuts.
Yeah, interesting. And I wonder maybe the Iran war, because
Yeah, that's
that's
also
a very kind of
possibly
traditional
resonant. Yeah.
neoconservative Republican thing, and it resolved in a way that actually ended up being pretty good for Trump. We did not, in fact, go into World War III. So
Yeah, Nathaniel, I know you are this podcast's favorite structuralist, and so I'm not surprised to hear you say, well, he was popular and then he started declining in popularity, and at a certain point he became unpopular, and that's just where we are now. Like, I think if you look at his approval rating over the time that he's been president, you do see reaction to actual events, right?
a few times,
The
yeah.
stock market crashing in response to the tariffs levied, it seems like there's a pretty clear relationship between implementing those tariffs or Liberation Day tariffs and his approval rating dropping significantly to its lowest point around net -10, then going back up a little bit as that went on pause, the stock market boomed. But I am curious. I think, yes, there is some noise in there, but if you look at the Silver Bulletin and if you look at Elliott's approval rating as well, you do see some recent decline. And I think that every pundit can sort of like take their pick in terms of what they want to attribute that decline to, because there is this isn't going to be divined by God. Like, no one's going to tell us it was, 1/3 this and 2/3 that and whatever. But I think the competing causes are, a negative reaction to Trump's deportation policies, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act passing, and then otherwise, just cost of living stuff issues enduring. I don't think Americans are probably reacting to the fact that annualized inflation ticked up to 2.9% from 2.7%. But if I had to take my pick, if I'm just going to toss my 2 pennies into the pundit pot, I'm going to guess One Big Beautiful Bill Act, because that is super salient stuff that people feel is more concrete and a change of topic, and it's different from what they had experienced from the Trump administration so far. And I'm not even saying that is necessarily like people already feeling the impact, because they aren't, right? The cuts to Medicaid and the changes to the Affordable Care Act subsidies and things like that, people won't experience until after the midterms. But this vibe of Republicans care more about the wealthy, they care less about the poor, et cetera, et cetera. If I had to guess, that's where the decline is coming from. And it also got wall-to-wall coverage. I know Jeffrey Epstein is getting, like, if you go on the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times on a regular basis, it keeps being at the top of the page, which again is a little bit surprising to me. Even though that's the case, I think people maybe find it entertaining, but I don't know if they find it important, as has already been discussed. So yeah, I would be curious, between the 3 or 4 topics out there, if you were forced to draw a connection, and we've already established that this is not data, where you might land.